Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture with a rogue spin every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on youtube.com/Rogue Matter and streaming simultaneously on facebook.com/We Are Rogue Matter. Download our podcast immediately following the live stream on all major podcasting apps. Join the movement. Go rogue, roguematter.com. Tonight, Peacemaker versus Book of Boba Fett. Will Netflix change the way they distribute and drop their latest shows? And we give you surefire predictions sure to go wrong. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort in crime, the Lord of the Radio himself, even though we're streaming live and on a podcast, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
Today is the greatest day of my life.
I can tell. Or you've been replaced by an android of some kind.
Which would inadvertently be the greatest day of my life. Trust me.
If I could do a clone of me, like, would you clone yourself if you could? Like in the movie Multiplicity? To get more things done, like so you can go on vacation and they would do all the work?
I would never trust a clone of myself.
It's very true, actually. I barely trust the real you. I can barely trust a clone, I mean.
That's fair. That's totally fair.
So
how did this become about me? This was a hypothetical.
It is a hypothetical.
I can say terrible things about myself. You can't say terrible things about me. And that's not right.
I didn't. I simply agreed with your statement.
You said you can't trust me.
Excellent point.
That hurts bad. That deeply wounds.
You're like, so you're allowed to speak truth about yourself, and then when I agree about that truth, you're like, wait a minute, it's messed up.
Yeah, that's how that's worked for time immemorial.
It's fair.
Get with it.
It's fair. I can't.
You cannot.
I can't argue with that.
You cannot.
So I got to tell you, you sent over some interesting articles for us to discuss today. But I got to tell you, even before we get into anything, I love me some Eagly. You know who Eagly? You know what I'm talking about?
I know who Eagly is.
That to me,
I don't understand the fascination with this show, but okay. All right.
Eagly to me is basically what it does. It justifies that the secret to a successful anything is to have some sort of cute component, right? Like some sort of lovable, cute component that offsets anything else you're going to do in a show or a story.
That's not always true.
It's got to be a successful cute component, but it's got to be there. It's got to be part of it. Because there's been attempts by other, shows, movies, comics, to where there is a cute component that just doesn't work. Like you sit there going, oh man, they're trying too hard. But then you have things like Grogu, and you have things like Eagly, and you're like, yeah. You even got things like what were those things in?
Eagly is not even the first thing I think about when I think about Peacemaker. That's really strange. It's like you're the first one to make the connection that I've heard make the connection between Grogu and Eagly.
Ooh.
But okay.
Well, I mean, would you expect any less than groundbreaking commentary from me?
And I don't have the bandwidth to navigate that one.
Fair enough. All right.
Anyway.
Peacemaker. So this was the big story, though. And this is something that's interesting. I enjoy articles like this. So from Yahoo Entertainment, and thank you, Hassan, for passing it along. I'm giving the proper credit. Peacemaker, most streamed show in the world, over The Witcher and the Book of Boba Fett. Eagly has eclipsed Grogu, aka Baby Yoda, as the world's most lovable mascot now that Peacemaker is the most streamed show in the world. In fact, the HBO Max series was more watched last week than The Witcher and the Book of Boba Fett. We're guessing those HBO execs can really taste it. The data comes from Parrot Analytics. It was viewed 69.5 times more, or is 69.5 times more in demand than the average show worldwide. The series just finished ahead of Netflix's The Witcher, which was 67.7, and The Book of Boba Fett, which is 66. What's surprising about all this is that Peacemaker, to rise to this level, first of all, it's part of a superhero franchise, so at least it has that going for it, right? But in terms, so it's on par with Book of Boba Fett and The Witcher, which are both part of, big name franchises based off of other material as well, or just franchises in general. The Witcher has a huge reading following, and Book of Boba Fett, Star Wars, right? Star Wars is the biggest thing. Peacemaker's part of DC, and that obviously has some cachet to it. But he is what many people would say is a B to C list character. It is definitely not one of the big three. It's not Wonder Woman, Batman, or Superman. It came on the heels of a movie.
Hero.
What's that? Well, he's not even a hero, but
he's not even a hero. So
right. But it's not even part of like the big. Again, it's not even. It's not an in-demand character, and it's coming off of a movie that, while better than its original incarnation, was a reboot of a movie that did not appeal to critics and had a lot of problems for fans. And so it was almost like you're rebooting a movie that no one really kind of was super excited to see or had bad reactions to, and your version's better, but it's whatever. It has so much going against it. So it's in a huge accomplishment for Peacemaker to now be the number one streaming show. And I think it's thanks to the material. I do. I think that the show is, when I look at all, like, and again, I'm not, a disclaimer, I'm going to drop Witcher from this conversation just because I'm not a fan of the show. I'm not watching it right now. Maybe I'll get into it at some point, but I can't speak to any authority on it, so I won't. The main argument of Peacemaker versus The Witcher, Peacemaker versus Book of Boba Fett. I look forward to it. This is how I'm gauging it, right? I look forward to an episode of Peacemaker. I'm enjoying both shows, but I look forward to an episode of Peacemaker way more than an episode of Book of Boba Fett. I care how I watch it. I don't want to watch it on my phone. Actually, I want to watch it on my TV. I want to settle in because I'm enjoying it so much that I can't wait for another installment. Book of Boba Fett, I watched it on my laptop today, and I'm okay with it. Again, I'm enjoying it. It's cool. We'll talk about this past week's episode as well. I don't have the gripes that I think the rest of the internet verse has with it. But if I had to gauge my level of which show am I more excited to watch each week, it's Peacemaker, and it's definitely due to the actual content of the show.
Fair enough. That sounds good.
Are you in any camp at that point?
No.
So you have equal interest in both, or do you favor one show over the other right now?
By dint of genre, I favor Boba Fett over Peacemaker because I'm more interested in Star Wars and I'm more interested in the sci-fi genre than I am in quote unquote mean-spirited, really bad, wacky, Joss Whedon-esque sort of debacle humor. But I'm not enjoying Peacemaker.
Are you surprised that it's the most streamed show this past week?
Not really. I'm happy for it.
Yeah.
My fascination comes more from the punditry, who are like, I don't even know why they're even making a Peacemaker show. Nobody even asked for this, and now they're all like, this is one of the greatest shows. It's like, why doesn't everybody just shut up?
Yeah,
let it happen, and then you actually, when you have news to report, you'll have things to report. And you'll sound less like idiots and hypocrites than if you just, well, I know insiders are saying right now that this is just a tax break and that they're not really doing this for certain. So whatever. That's more of.
Where did you hear that? How did you know?
That's more of the jungle that I tend to travel in. I like that there's content. I like that there's something to watch one night. There's at least one good thing to watch every night of the week. And so Peacemaker is among that. I kind of see where it's going. I think it's kind of pedestrian, personally. I think it's kind of like, bathroom humor. And, a lot of the disconnected sociopath who doesn't understand why he or she is not making the correct connection with normal people, or why things are why they are the author of their own misery kind of situation. It's been done time after time. It's really well done. John Cena is extremely funny. He's genuinely a funny person to watch. I like the cast. I do not agree that Eagly has replaced Grogu. I think that's just a headline. That's just a clickbait gotcha.
No, that's not. That's my feeling on it. I think Eagly right now is the number one mascot.
I'm talking about like the people who matter, like the country. So anyway, and
what's your habit for viewing? I'm curious at this. Do you and it's not a loaded question. I'm genuinely curious. Do you tend to watch something and then go to some sort of social media to find out what the world's reaction is? I'll sometimes do that.
Not really. Sometimes. I mean, depending on what happened. Like for the recent Boba Fett, because there were such big things in that episode that were not announced to that were supposed to take place in that particular episode. I just went to see what the reaction was from the groundswell. But for the most part, I don't really care what anybody else thinks. That's why I'm so bad at this job. Like, I don't really give a damn.
It's funny. This is why I asked though too, because you always seem to come back with knowledge of what the outside world is thinking. So you're not bad at the job then.
Because I have my, I kind of have my ear to the ground about all that stuff.
Is it a circle of friends, or is it like you scan No,
I basically follow various supposed quote unquote industry insiders.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay. And various personalities.
I got it.
And so, I get their impressions. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. Like, some of them have some really terrible takes on things, Right. And then, one of the things I dislike the most listening to those things is when people are, I turn one of these commentators off for good when he referred to Duncan, Idaho as David, Idaho. And I was like, okay, you know what? You don't even know what you have no idea what the material is you're reading off of, and you're LARPing as some kind of comic book expert or whatever. But there are some pleasant discoveries where you're kind of watching a personality, and a lot of times you just watch these things for the personality. You don't really watch them for the information, because
like us, we don't give any information.
We don't even have any personality, so that's the other part of it.
Speak for yourself. I am affable and enjoyable. So says my Q ratings.
But every now and then, one of these personalities will reveal themselves to be a genuine fan of whatever genre, and that actually makes, to me, the information that they're giving out even more credible, right? Because you genuinely read, like you genuinely know who Adam Warlock is, so therefore you're actually giving me pertinent information on this stuff. So that's kind of what I do. I watch a lot of how-tos, and I watch a lot of artists draw things and stuff like that. A lot of YouTube.
Okay,
that's my thing.
No. I was just curious, because I'm wondering if I actually really don't gauge the interest, but I get the news feeds like you, where someone will kind of all of a sudden you'll see articles, and spoiler if you haven't watched not today's episode of Boba Fett, but last week's episode of Boba Fett, things like, can Mandalorian save Book of Boba Fett? And then I go, I didn't know it needs saving. So then I'll dive in.
It really doesn't. Yeah, and then they catch you.
Then I'll dive in and be like, I didn't realize people didn't like this. That's too bad. I like it. I mean, I have no qualms with the actual show.
It ain't going anywhere. And everybody, like, people were mad. People are now supposedly mad that he's not in the show in the last 2 episodes. But they were mad that he was the only thing in the show, the previous episodes. They didn't like the Vespa, the most Vespa gang, and they didn't like there was some complaints about the train heist in the second episode,
which is probably to me the best part of the show so far. Actually,
all those scenes with the Tusken Raiders that this is boring or whatever, or the fact that he spends most of his time on a bantha. I mean, they've been doing nothing but complaining. So, like, after a while, it just starts to sound like noise. And
Yeah.
you wonder, like, you know what? I enjoyed the last episode, and I enjoyed this episode, and Mandalorian. Boba Fett was reintroduced to us all through the Mandalorian, so there is a connection with it. And the last time we saw Boba Fett was he was helping the Mandalorian save Grogu. So now when we cut back into the Mandalorian's life, it's still connected to Boba Fett.
It is. It was jarring, though. I'm not gonna lie. It was a little jarring to see the Mandalorian, and not only just to see the Mandalorian, but to have learned a lot of aspects to what happened with him that I thought, well, I guess this would have, to me, it felt like I thought they would have saved this for season 3 of The Mandalorian, and now the title Book of Boba Fett actually, look, I know it says the Book of Boba Fett. What does that even mean? But it to me, it was jarring only because now all of a sudden it becomes Book of Boba Fett / Mandalorian.
Nah, there are chapters in every book where there's other characters who are focused on. If it's called the Book of Boba Fett and we're going to try to take that for something literal, that it's not unprecedented for chapters in a particular book. Like there are chapters in the first Game of Thrones book that do not have Ned Stark in them.
Sure.
So it is. I understand it. I understand where people come from. There's nothing wrong with I don't understand. I sort of get the comment of finding it jarring. I don't. Okay, I mean, if I was watching,
here's why it's jarring though.
If I was watching Falcon and Winter Soldier and Mando walk through, I would find that jarring. But I think
no, that would have been epic. That would have
finding
saved
Mando
I'd have been like, this makes total sense now.
Finding Mando in a Boba Fett show. Not really.
No, exactly. Again, deal with. Again, from a
jarring. I don't think I would call it
from
jarring.
A thinking standpoint, right? From an actual, I'm going to think it's something versus react to something. No, it makes total sense. Yeah, they are interconnected. I guess it makes sense because obviously, the suits are what connect them because that is connected to both of, their characters and their identities. But what I think it does is, in an inadvertent way, it does show how much more I actually enjoyed The Mandalorian than I am Book of Boba Fett. And again, I enjoyed them, but I'm not enjoying them equally. I definitely can admit to that. And I definitely, by seeing Mandalorian in these past episodes,
I just don't get that. I get it, but I just don't get it.
In the grand scheme of things,
I do understand
in the grand scheme
it.
Of things, I'm not like, but I'm not going on social media being like, this is the worst thing ever, and blah, blah, blah. I'm not building an identity around myself.
But in the context of this conversation in and of itself, I know that you're not blowing the story up. But like the other side is 5 episodes into Mandalorian, we didn't know who the hell the Mandalorian was, really,
Yeah.
So okay, Boba Fett's a guy who had maybe 4 lines in the entire original trilogy.
Yep.
His name wasn't mentioned until Return of the Jedi. He didn't even have a genuine introduction by name, by his name being called, until he died, until the scene just before he died, right? He's a blank slate. He is a suit. They took all that majesty and put it into Mandalorian, to put it into another character, mostly for licensing reasons. We'll just have to come up with our own character, so we have the license to do whatever we want, say whatever we want with that character, until they drummed up enough credibility to actually bring in a legacy character, such as the genuine Boba Fett. So now in their attempt to do his show, they have to carry a show. They have to give the show a reason for existing, and they also have to flesh out a one-dimensional character who's mainly only a suit, which the gimmick of which was already, has already been given over to Goodwill, but in introducing Mandalorian, who's also had 2 different forms of armor, like in his show, there are 2 different incarnations of the Mandalorian, the original with the ruined Beskar, and then the reconstituted Beskar that he got when he did the bounty on Grogu. So we already have 2 seasons and 2 incarnations of a particular character that they invented from whole cloth using the shadow of Boba Fett and the stigma of Boba Fett to
Sure.
promote him. So now you're going to bring Boba Fett to life, and I do believe that there's a scuttle. I do not know if this is true, so I say this, and everybody take this with a grain of salt when I say it. There was some kind of a scheduling hiccup with the third season of Mandalorian, where they had to inadvertently, shoehorn this in to as in a holding place because they had lost they lost Pedro Pascal definitely for the Last of Us TV show that he's filming for HBO. But there were others, some behind the scenes stuff that no one is 100% clear on, so we don't know what it is, so we won't speculate. But that's basically why we're watching Book of Boba Fett anyway.
But go back to the point you just said though about what they had to do to make the Mandalorian successful. I agree with everything you said, and I think they succeeded. And I think that's now become a detriment to Boba Fett, right? Boba Fett was a unique character that everyone kind of enjoyed and kind of liked from a visual standpoint. From a visual standpoint, I think the Mandalorian actually looks cooler, especially seeing him walking around in this only exemplifies that. I think it's almost what we used to like about, or I'll say what we or I or whatever.
No, just you.
What I used to like, or no, but I'm talking about fandom, right? Like fandom. When
you say we, you imply that I'm included in that, and I don't.
Okay, I will exclude you, but I'll say fandom. Yeah. What fandom liked about Boba Fett was he was cool looking, right? Like he was cool, he was mysterious, and now the Book of Boba Fett. One of the complaints, and I don't disagree with one of these complaints necessarily, from just a coolness factor, is we don't see him in the outfit, and he doesn't quite fit the outfit the same way anymore. Or not even anymore. He wasn't in the outfit in the original movies. It was Jeremy Bulloch, and meanwhile, Pedro Pascal looks cool as the Mandalorian, and now you get to.
That's not even him in the Mandalorian suit. It's only his voice.
Oh, that's true. Well, whoever they have playing him looks cool and captures the essence of cool. That again is not. It's an it factor. It's not something you can put in a bottle and accurately explain. But he's got it, and now Boba Fett kind of doesn't. And by bringing Mandalorian in, it's almost like, oh yeah, man. Actually, I miss the Mandalorian. Kind of wish this was a Mandalorian show. I'm enjoying Book of Boba Fett, so I don't really have major complaints.
Sounds like
in terms of it, but I see why now shoehorning him into this might not have been the best thing. Let's do a quick spoiler.
No, but I mean, like if you shoehorn him in, if you don't put him in there, then people are like, well, we were expecting him to show up. How come they didn't show up? I wasn't
though.
Well, yeah, but a lot of other people were. And then the other thing would be, they're afraid to put him in there because they know Mando's going to show up, Boba Fett. So I mean, there would have been no way to win. I mean, look, he's part of the grand scheme, just like Luke, just like Ahsoka. Just like all these other characters, they're part of the grand storytelling of Star Wars. What's going on here? This is all information you're getting of what happened after Return of the Jedi, which is still virgin territory.
Yes.
So I mean,
so that's why I wanted to put a stoppage for 2 seconds and do spoilers. If you haven't seen today's episode, I just want to talk briefly. This was a question I had in my own mind coming in, was whether or not we were going to see de-aged, Luke again, Return of the Jedi Luke again. And part of me, in my head was like, well, is that going to take away from how cool it was at the end of season 2 if we ever do see Luke again? But the other part of me is like, wow, they've now opened this toy box and I want them to go back to it. I want to see more. And so this past episode, my final judgment is I'm glad they did this. I'm glad they're, again, whether or not it should be in the Book of Boba Fett or it should be in, the Mandalorian or whatever the case is, as long as they use it sparingly, just because the DH technology is not 100% there. There's still some stiffness. There's still some knowledge that it's not, you're not looking at real Mark Hamill right now. But I think it's pretty good enough that if they use it sparingly and the way they did it, I thought was good enough. And I enjoy this. And now I am actually getting amped to think of the possibilities in terms of Carrie Fisher. I doubt they're going to ever want to touch that, obviously, because she's passed away. But Harrison Ford, that's got some real potential now, to make a reappearance. And I almost
probably
love the
won't though. They'll
idea.
probably have Alden Ehrenreich just because they've already pre-established him.
Yeah.
If they do it, but I mean, they may not because this is 10 years later, so they may get away with having it actually be Harrison Ford. But who knows?
Yeah, but the thing that I like about it now is what this is doing. And I think you and I have had this conversation many, many years ago, or I've had this conversation with other people because I kept reading about the avatar technology, which is what they're using. This whole de-aging, projecting on screen through computer, what is not actually there, was technology James Cameron invented when he put out Avatar in 2009. And it opens the possibility that the number one thing, what always inhibits us from doing in the movies what they do in the comics, which is, look, a comic, you create a comic book character. I mean, that character can be the same age for 20 years. That character can be the same age for 30 years, 60 years. Spider-Man's been in college since the 80s, right? Like, and you can do that because it's a piece of paper and a drawing on a piece of paper. You couldn't do that before with actors and actresses because they're going to age. And now we can start treating these iconic characters as separate from their actor, the actors who portrayed them. Because now you can bring back Mark Hamill. That is Mark Hamill speaking. That is Mark Hamill doing his own voiceover, but almost treating it like animation, except it's so ultra realistic that we can carry on these characters. I mean, think about this, right? We don't need to have old Indiana Jones or old Han Solo. We can have young Han Solo. We can have, the character Indiana Jones can go on without having to go the James Bond route. And I find that exciting. I find that to be, kind of exciting territory. Now, again, whether they're going to cross over into the posthumous, is it posthumous? Posthumous?
Mm-hmm.
Got that one right this time.
Yeah,
John Cena,
sure.
by the way. Posthumous, territory, which can be dicey, right? I mean, maybe these actors are going to have to start putting in their wills that their estate gets paid royalties if they get brought back after they're deceased. I mean, what a world of
studios are smart. They'll start putting that in their contracts.
I think so.
They'll start putting a purchasing or a percentage of their likeness, of being able to utilize their likeness for particular, and they'll license that from the estate of the of the actor.
And if I'm an actor or an actress, I mean, the thought of living on in the movies, I would think that's enticing. I think that's a positive.
Could be.
So, but it's exciting for me.
You could think of a number of terrible things that they could do with it.
Well, I mean, there has to be some sort of, there has to be some sort of like estate, approval clause in there. But I find it exciting. So to me, again, I think you phrased it great in our production meeting. This is all Star Wars. My only point in Book of Boba Fett is, in terms of what I was expecting, having Mandalorian in there did feel jarring. But ultimately, I'm still enjoying the show. I'm enjoying Peacemaker more, though, and I'm look forward to Peacemaker more than Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. If you must turn it into a competition, then I suppose so.
I do. And it's just how I live life. And it's pretty good. What do you guys think?
A lot. That tells me everything I need to know.
Boba Fett, are they both hitting the marks for you? Are neither? Is one hitting it more than the other? Is one not hitting it over the other? Let us know in the comment feed. When we come back, Rogue predictions sure to go wrong. 2022 box office when we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. Just a reminder to go onto roguematter.com right now. We've got tons of comics and ebooks and videos that are absolutely free to read. Making Markham, issues 1 to 3, 1, 2, and 3. All there. Complete story, beginning, middle, and end for free. Go read it. Coming out next week is Time Trader #1. That was created by yours truly. It's about a young upstart with the ability to rewind time, goes to the stock market to try and cash in, discovers it's run by an Illuminati of people just like him. That's coming out next week, Time Trader #1. And we've got McBride and Groom. We've got tons of stuff. It's all free. Go to roguematter.com and you can enjoy it right now. Okay. Doing a segment now. I got to be honest, Hassan, I was surprised when you sent me this article because we've talked about predictions on the show. And this article is all about box office predictions for 2022. I will eat this stuff up all day long. I love it. I love
That's
being
why
able
I sent it to you.
share.
What's I sent it to you because that's why I sent it to you because I knew you'd eat it up. I don't have a dog in the prediction hunt. I really don't.
But by sending it to me, you've essentially blessed me doing this on the show. Now it's like I have to.
You do whatever you want, man. I mean, like I'll try to be present when you do it.
So they broke this down. They broke it down as a sure thing, a safe bet, and a question mark, right? So kind of in three categories they picked, and we'll try to stick with. We'll try to stick with genre stuff, stuff that we more or less seem to comment on a lot because there's a couple movies in here that I think we can probably gloss over if we don't mention it. But starting right away with a film that I think is a curious one, but is listed under the sure thing, The Batman. Now this is a sure thing. It's a comic book adventures have essentially been pandemic proof at the box office, and Batman is one of the most ubiquitous masked heroes on the planet. Add Robert Pattinson as a moody, enigmatic Caped Crusader and Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, and yeah, this movie is going to be huge. Do you agree or disagree that this is a sure thing at the box office?
I disagree. Nothing is a sure thing.
Aside from that, nothing is a sure thing.
If you're going to ask me like
probability
questions like that, yeah,
probability.
See, that's the thing. No,
I'm gonna say it's a sure thing. It's going to have a very strong opening weekend, but then it's going to come down to how well Robert Pattinson fits behind the cape and cowl. It really falls on his shoulders.
I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to do really well, and I think it's going to usher in the new era of Batman. Simply because of this. The same reason that I was one of the few people who wasn't worried when I heard that they had cast Heath Ledger as the Joker.
Yeah.
I'm like, obviously there's a reason why they cast him.
Yeah.
He's such an unclear choice to play that role. Just like Robert Pattinson. Such an unclear choice to play the role that there must have been something that he was able to do that wowed people into believing that he could be the Batman, just like Heath Ledger was able to be the Joker. So I think it's going to be fine. I think it's very ambitious. I think the fact that it's almost like 3 hours, if not a little 3 hours. I've liked the trailers. My only issue with the trailers are the whole thing, and this is the only thing that could tank it potentially. Other than it being absolute garbage, which it could be,
obviously, we don't know what it's going to be. It's going to fall on the shoulders of the content, sure.
But I think Batman fatigue might tank it. I mean, I think Gotham fatigue. I think the fact that this brooding guy who's going out to stop everybody because killed his dad and his mom in the movie theater, and we're gonna have to see that all over again. And he's all angsty, and I think that could kill it. I think if you don't have some kind of new energy element to go with the the motif, the very well established motif of the Dark Knight in rundown Gotham. I think if you don't have some kind of new spark to it, it could probably very easily be
I agree,
blend in with the Nolan stuff, and I think Nolan put such a severe that's probably the wrong adjective for it, but such a severe stamp on it, on the Batman thing, on the Batman aesthetic, that it's going to be difficult for any film to come along and not be compared. And I think that's what was a big success with the Affleck Batman. Is that I wasn't thinking Nolan at all while watching it. Now, Mileage varies on whether that kind of Batman does it for certain people. It was one of my favorites, very much out of the Frank Miller book of Batman. But this Patterson Batman is going to flirt very hard with the Nolan aesthetic. You can see that already in the trailer.
I don't put this as a sure thing. I really don't. If I was to put it anyway, I'd actually put it in question mark. I really would. It's not a safe bet, and it's not a sure thing. I think it all falls down to what happens with Pattinson and how well we take to him. And so, quite frankly, this is a question mark for me. Box office wise, I think it's a question mark.
Well, I mean, when it pertains to that question, though, in and of itself, I'm not really worried, because I think he wouldn't have gotten the job if he couldn't do the job in this particular. Batman is such a thing that you wouldn't just let's just throw someone in there and just see if we can do it. So,
yeah. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and they actually threw together all of the MCU releases into this one. Marvel's Doctor Strange sequel immediately follows the events of December's billion-dollar grossing Spider-Man No Way Home, which cracked open the multiverse so all manner of previous Spider-Man characters could play together. This movie has multiverse in the title, suggesting variant versions of all kinds of MCU characters could be on deck for appearances. On top of that, Scarlet Witch is carrying over the events from her Emmy-winning Disney Plus hit, WandaVision. Didn't know it won any Emmys. Maybe costume. Plus, Marvel tapped Sam Raimi, author of the original Spider-Man trilogy, to direct, and Michael Waldron, head writer of Loki, to write the screenplay. So there will be some cohesiveness in it. The only cause of concern, they wrote, was that the first Doctor Strange movie is among Marvel's lowest grossing blockbusters. And the film was still shooting in Los Angeles through December 2021, causing Marvel to push its release date from February to May. I'm going to go under the category of sure thing. I don't see this as not being a sure thing. I don't see this as... Look, it's Marvel, right? They've pretty much proven that anything they put their stamp on when it comes to theaters is going to be a big hit at the box office. And even if it is one of their lowest grossing films, I think the cachet of having him in Spider-Man, which was one of the highest grossing ones, is going to carry over. I don't see this. I see this as nothing less than a sure thing.
Outstanding production design was the Emmy that WandaVision won.
There we go. That was excellent, by the way, the production design.
I mean, yeah, it's going to do well. It's going to be fine.
Sure
It'll
thing
be
or safe bet? No? All right.
No, you're not getting me on that binary crap. But I think it's going to do fine. If you want,
those are the two positive ones. It's basically kind of like a hot, medium, and cold. And I'm going to go. I'm going hot take. I think it's a short bet.
I don't break things down like that. Like, I don't break down like I'm liking Peacemaker, but not as much as Boba Fett. I mean, like, I don't get judging things on that level. I don't judge people who judge things on that level, but I just don't, and so therefore, like, is this going to be seriously hot or is this going to be lukewarm? I don't know. It's going to do well. It'll be fine.
Okay. Jurassic World. What looks strong despite 3 decades passing since the original Jurassic Park.
Yeah, but the last two were like billion-dollar movies.
The 2015 sequel and its 2018 follow-up each devoured more than $1 billion globally, cementing the science fiction action series as one of Hollywood's biggest film franchises. I gotta say, they have it under the sure thing. I will put it as a safe bet, only because the way movie theaters have now transformed, they are big event movies. There's nothing bigger. Look, my son, he's 5 years old, friggin' loves dinosaurs. I think just dinosaurs are just something that all kids, especially young boys, just love. And as they grow up, I don't think there's any level of losing interest in them. And theaters are made for big spectacles. So I'm going to put this under a I'll put this under a safe bet that it's going to do really well.
That's fair. I think it will do well, but I don't go safe bet or sure thing.
Okay.
F that.
Okay.
F those parameters. But I think it'll do
yes.
fine.
But this is what Variety is. So we're commenting on Variety.
Yeah, Varieties, but they're fools.
That's fair enough. All right. The final sure thing under their so these are all things they consider to be sure things.
That's fine. Okay? That's fine.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. Yeah, sure thing. I don't think there's any doubt it is going to be.
Well,
a sure
okay. See, now we're because of the original didn't really do that well at the box office. It was critically acclaimed out the wazoo, and it won an Academy Award. But
in the process, it grossed an unexpected $375.5 million worldwide and won the Oscar.
They expected it to do more than that, though. They expected it to go higher. No, according to Variety. According to Variety, they didn't. But according to just about every other piece of paraphernalia that I read on it at the time when it came out, it wasn't a box office blowout, is how it was described. Okay. So, but 300 million for an animated movie is fantastic.
Close to 400, yeah.
So I think the second one will do just the same, especially also everything I've heard about Arcane.
Mm-hmm.
And the extravaganza that Arcane has become. They said this is the greatest animation since Into the Spider-Verse. So Into the Spider-Verse still is the only other piece of animated paraphernalia that was mentioned in the praise and consistently mentioned in praise of Arcane. So that Into the Spider-Verse has a huge market share. Mm-hmm. Of whatever the new craze for animation is going to be, whatever fortiche, whatever they have unlocked in changing the game for animation, Into Spider-Verse does really have a significant place in the Hall of Fame on that. So the second one coming up, I'm pretty sure animation enthusiasts are going to be there in droves.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure that it's going to do well.
I think so too. Into the safe bet category, Mission Impossible 7. What looks strong is 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout. Earned some of the best reviews in the series' history.
Great movie.
Grossing $800 million, close to it worldwide. Fallout's core creative team has returned, including writer-director Christopher McQuarrie and co-stars Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, and Vanessa Kirby. I gotta tell you, I would.
They're making 2 more, aren't they? I think 7 and 8 simultaneous.
Yes, but I think this is the one that's actually releasing in September.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They put this under safe bet. I will agree, but I would almost put it under a sure thing. I think fans have just. This is a franchise that, again, fits what the movie theater experience has become, which is larger than life, and. At this point, this and Fast and the Furious movies, I'm just never surprised that they do like gangbusters.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be $1 billion movie, but I think it's going to do really well, justifying the next one, which will already be half, if not totally in the can when it comes out. It'll be fine. They'll do all right. They'll do good.
This falls under safe bet. The Flash, releasing November 4th.
I don't know about that.
Strong. More multiversal shenanigans as a pretext for some deep dish nostalgia, this time in the DC Comics realm. Barry Allen, as played by Ezra Miller, runs back in time to prevent his mother's murder, but in doing so, he splinters his timeline and finds himself face-to-face with Michael Keaton's version of Bruce Wayne from 1989's Batman and Batman Returns.
I think that's what's going to do it.
Right.
It's going to do it.
It is, director Andy Muschietti, fresh from directing the It movies to $1.1 billion in global box office, cast Sasha Calle as the first big screen Supergirl, and some other DC Universe stars are set to reprise their roles, including Michael Shannon as General Zod and Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne from Barry's cinematic universe. I'm going to say this is
my favorite Batman.
This is a safe bet as well. The only reason I don't put this in the sure thing category, because all this sounds delicious, right? This sounds like stuff that we as fans of this stuff would just devour. Like Michael Keaton, who would have thought I'd say this? Ben Affleck, like I can't wait to see it. Like I can't wait to see these guys. But I'm going to say it's a safe bet, not a sure thing, because it's DC, right?
I would say yes, but I think Zack Snyder's return to form, with not only Justice League but also the Vegas Dead movie, which I forget the name of it. Vegas Dead. I think I think that, I think a lot of things are going to go off. I think the political situation with Joss Whedon is going to be a factor into it.
Mhm.
I think there's going to be, I think since this movie readily acknowledges the Snyderverse, but it's also credibly a kind of a gateway out of the Snyderverse without destroying the Snyderverse, there's a potential for this movie to be really big. There's a potential for Snyder supporters to be really, to be
Vocal.
really diligent in supporting it. And the fact that Ezra Miller is going to be a brand new Flash, that we haven't seen him on his own, and he hasn't really. There's some controversy surrounding him, but he hasn't really been controversial as pertaining to fans. Again, Ben Affleck's Batman's going to be in it, but also Michael Keaton, first time back as Batman since Batman Returns. That's going to. I mean, I'm sure the movie's going to short shrift us, and he's going to be in it for 6 seconds, and he's going to be in a tuxedo. And he's not even going to be Batman in it, that because they do stuff like that. But I think just the idea that we'll get him, as Batman again is going to be pretty big. And if they handle it correctly and they do a good job, the sky's the limit. It could be Wonder Woman or Aquaman.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna go. We've got 2 more, maybe 3. No, we got 3 more, and this is we'll wrap this up kind of quick. Avatar 2. They have this listed as a safe bet. I'm actually, without going into too much detail about it, I'm going to put this under question mark. I don't think it's a safe bet, only because it's been 13 years since the original came out. When I think back to Avatar, I think of an enjoyable film experience. I think really cool technology, but what set it apart for me was that it was the first modern 3D experience. It was more about the experience than the actual storyline. I honestly don't really care too much about the characters. Again, did I enjoy it? Absolutely. Did I walk around going like, wow, what an amazing story that was? I walked out going like, holy cow, those 3D glasses were unbelievable. Could you believe that we were seeing that stuff like that? And could you believe that they were able to project, the technology on screen? Like, it was more of a technical and experience for me, rather than they don't ever have to put another Avatar out, and I would never sit there and go like, oh man, they're really missing out, because man, I can't even remember what happened. It's been 13 years, and I didn't walk out of the theater being that bowled over. I think it's a question mark more than anything else.
I don't bet against James Cameron ever, so it'll be fine.
Got it. All right, I love it. Morbius. This is now.
I mean, if you want to think about it, when they brought it out again, so it could beat Endgame. So they brought it out it skyrocketed yet again, and that was the original, and that was less than that was 10 years after, right?
Okay.
So they've been waiting for this sequel for a long time. There's a totally opportunity that it's gonna tank, and that Cameron's gonna blow it, but he hasn't blown it yet. So
all right,
he's earned enough goodwill from me to predict that he will do well.
Okay. Morbius. Now they have this under a question mark, and what looks strong, Venom and Venom Let There Be Carnage, demonstrated that Sony doesn't need Spider-Man to make a major Marvel hit, and the studio hopes that trend continues with Morbius. The cause for concern is that Morbius is not nearly as well known or beloved as Venom, and unlike Sony's recent Spider-Man movies, Morbius was not produced by Marvel Studios and is not part of the MCU, despite Keaton's curious involvement and shots in the trailer that include posters of Spider-Man in the background, although they did answer that question in Spider-Man Homecoming. So it's maybe not connected directly, but it exists in a universe that could have different versions of characters that we've seen. So I don't think that's as much to worry about. But the one major cause for concern is Tom Holland's Peter Parker almost certainly won't be swinging into this movie. They have this under question mark. I have this under question mark. I don't disagree. Venom is one of those Deadpool-esque characters that fandom has just grown to love. The comic book fandom has grown to love, and that has transferred over. Morbius is obviously not. Morbius was a recurring Spider-Man nemesis, sometimes friend. Kudos to them for trying to make a cool vampire movie, which is what I hope they try to do with this. in the vein of how Blade was a cool vampire hunter movie. But ultimately, I would say question mark. I have no idea how this is going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I won't bet against it because of Venom. So you never know. But I'm not interested. I couldn't care less whether it does well or not.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree. Well, it's interesting if you're a fan of this kind of stuff in terms of branching out. It's definitely something that I
mean, I don't hope against it. Right. But I don't know.
Finally,
if it was Morbius versus Blade, I'd be there in a heartbeat.
That's true, actually.
In a heartbeat.
The final movie, Uncharted, and this is actually coming out. So we're gonna get an answer to this very, very.
This is Friday, right? This
is February 18th, actually, February 18th. Okay. So
not this Friday.
The reason I bring this up is it was part of the video game series Uncharted, and it's about dashing treasure hunter Nathan Drake.
It's the male Tomb Raider.
Yes,
it's a guy Tomb Raider.
And it stars Tom Holland, who right now is technically the biggest movie star in the world because of Spider-Man.
He's doing all right. He's doing okay.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Cause for concern, this is according to Variety. For one, video game adaptions other than some of the Resident Evil movies and maybe Sonic the Hedgehog have basically never worked. For another, at 25, Holland is at least 10 years younger than Drake was in the video games, but I mean, who really cares about that? And while Holland's Spider-Man movies have all been blockbusters, he has struggled to connect in films that have nothing to do with superheroes. I think this is a huge question mark. I think video game adaptions, the audience for video games, the audience who play video games, they don't always come out in the theaters. It's almost counterintuitive to not be in control of what happens to the character now that video games have become such narrative pieces themselves. So I think there's a component to that. It's got to be a cool movie for moviegoers to come out. I don't think you can depend on a video game audience to come out. And I actually think Tom Holland, while he is technically the biggest movie star in the world, is in a little bit of a quandary. I saw the trailer for this and I go, that looks cool. That's Spider-Man. I think he's trapped right now in the fact that he is Spider-Man. I almost kind of don't want to see him, and this is my own personal opinion. I just don't want to see him as anything but Spider-Man. I just know him as Spider-Man. It's going to take something truly different for him to break away from being, in my mind, typecast. And I'm projecting my own thoughts as to what an audience might also perceive. So I would say question mark. Big question mark for this movie.
I think it'll do okay. But, I mean, look, it could suffer pandemic curse because it's kind of an unknown. It's not a widely known, it's not an Indiana Jones movie, but it's trying to be.
Yep.
But look, it might be people are looking for brand new action adventure stories. It's probably politically safe for general audiences to be able to watch. So, I mean, there's a very good chance people are going to be, by February, people are going to be looking for something to escape to that they could probably bring a lot of people to, their families to, and whatever. That could be it. Because a lot of these other things are kind of controversial. Like, it's questionable whether you're going to bring your kid to see Batman or Jurassic Park, because it might be violent, even though it probably won't be. Mm-hmm. Some of these other things, like, Morbius, you're not going to take your kid to see a vampire movie, even if it is for Sony. But you might go take them into a kind of raucous action adventure story about archaeology. Maybe kid will learn something also. So there's that factor to key into that, and it might be bigger than we think it is. The Uncharted video game series is pretty huge.
Yeah,
pretty huge. So, and they've been talking about this movie for ages. So it's sort of anticipated. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. All right, what do you guys think? That was sure thing, safe bet, or big fat question mark?
Or
I'm going to name that segment though. I think we should do it in movie theater terms, like butter my popcorn, or
no,
or bring an outside food or beverage.
That was funnier. Butter my popcorn is a euphemism. It's a terrible euphemism for
not good, right?
many other things. No,
it sounded better in my head than when it actually came out.
Yeah, until you said it, and then it was like, no. But I mean, bring in outside food. That strikes a chord. So we'll use that.
We'll work on the tweaking. But what do you guys think? Sure thing, safe bet, big fat question mark. Let us know in the comment feed. When we come back, we're going to do a Rogue Rage rebuttal. It's going to be very exciting. What does that mean? I'll have to find out.
Even I don't know.
In 30 seconds. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. Next week, we've got a lot of cool stuff happening because Book of Boba Fett reaches its conclusion. So we will be doing our spoiler-ish reaction, our Rogue reaction to it. But first, before we exit this show, again, this has been the Hassan Godwin vehicle, by the way. These are all topics that you brought up that I think is pretty awesome. There is a Variety article out there that says viewer data suggests many Netflix hits go from sizzle to fizzle quickly. According to Variety, the top 2021 Netflix series saw audiences peak in the first month following their debut. Even reigning hit Squid Game saw a pronounced drop-off after a hot start, and the frequency of big Netflix originals quickly losing steam hints at why the streamer must spend so heavily on content. All of this suggests, in compilation with things like Masters of the Universe being released in 2 parts, and Ozark, which, by the way, update to the Ozark challenge.
Oh boy.
I'm on episode 8 of season
3. Still season 3. Darn it.
I'm almost there.
I watched like 2 seasons of Ray Donovan and the Ray Donovan movie in the time it's taken you to watch like 4 episodes. It's terrible.
In my defense for Ozark, honestly,
don't defend.
I always want to start the next one. I do, but they are so emotionally draining that by the time I get to the next one, I'm like, I need time. Like, I literally need time, because there's part of me that sits there and says, I literally could watch the rest of this all night long. But I'm like, you know what? After what just happened, man. So
fair
wait
enough.
to see what happens in season 4. But yeah, no, I remember why I took a break from it. It was too much. It was too much. But anyway, that was the Ozark challenge. I think I think I can guarantee by next week, I will be into season 4. Unless something so dramatic happens at the end of season 3 that I need a huge long break.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Then if that's the caveat, then yeah, we do not know.
So
good luck.
I'm going to call this a Rogue Rage rebuttal, because one of your Rogue Rages was that you did not like the week-to-week format, but now data is showing it's actually worse. It's worse off. It doesn't actually help you get more content, because now Netflix has to spend so much to produce new content and they're not getting the bang for the buck, that one of 2 things is going to happen. Their business model is going to collapse completely, in which case you're only going to be left with these other streamers, or they're going to have to change to meet the demands.
You don't actually have that 100% correct in saying that I don't like the week-to-week format.
Okay.
I don't mind the week-to-week format. It's the format that we grew up with. I mean, we're stuck with it for freaking 30 years. I don't like that because of the binging phenomenon.
Yeah.
No one's making week-to-week episodes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, these episodes don't have a first act, second act, third act, or, rising action, conclusion, denouement, all that stuff. A lot of that stuff is missing from these from average episodes, which is why people are kind of feeling, a little annoyed whenever they're watching something and they have to wait a week for the next episode, but they didn't feel like they got anything satisfying in the episode that they're currently watched.
Yeah.
They just watched. So I think I think shows like, say, like Mandalorian, some of the MCU shows, I think they're spared this fate because they are made with the knowledge that these will be week to week as opposed to dropped all at once. But you can't just, I just don't think you could turn that faucet off and expect, expect all the content to fit perfectly in the week to week format. I think there's adjustments in the stylization and the way a lot of these shows are made has to be administered for it all to work. Also, otherwise, a lot of these shows are going to fall apart very quickly and will be forgotten halfway through their run. Which case, more shows are going to get canceled than not. Because Netflix is already they're already trigger happy with cancel. Yeah. So I think if people start losing faith in something halfway through a season, just because of the pacing of the season, like remember the Marvel series, right? That they always felt like they were like 2 or 3 episodes too long. That they were padded. Yeah. That's because they just don't know how to manage their time very well. So that was my complaint about it.
Steve Hovecki, frequent guest and collaborator on the show and creator of McBride and Groom, which is on Rogue Matter right now. He had a great suggestion, but I don't think it actually works. But I think it was a great suggestion, which was, if it's a new show, you drop the whole season, the first season, and then you come back at the second season and you do it in drips and drabs. I don't think it's 100% successful that way to do it, because what you're going to end up having are people now saying, wait, what do you mean I have to wait week to week for this, whereas last year I got the whole thing? However, I bet you if they did binge drops, so maybe 3 episodes every 2 weeks.
Hold on. Wait, before you go into your, you didn't, I cut you off before you gave us the statistics that you were telling us about in the article about why this is starting to cost Netflix a lot of money. Oh, so because I kind of got in your way there.
I just had a bullet point. It just said the frequency of big Netflix originals quickly losing steam hints at why the streamer must spend so heavily on content. That's something like $18 billion that they're investing in new content.
Because the lack of interest in some things, or not necessarily the lack of interest, but the lack of
drop off
trending. Yeah,
right. Exactly. The drop off. And last basically, other streamers now are able to milk the content, milk less content, so they don't have to spend as much, and therefore they're more profitable. Netflix and look, it's not just going to affect how much. Whether or not Netflix can make money, it's going to affect how much Netflix is going to cost. At what point do you sit there and say, I'm done? It's why Netflix is actually investing in movies now. They're investing more in movies than shows. And because the shows cost more, whereas TV shows used to cost less, but now if you have to do 5 seasons of a show,
each of your season has to be pretty much of the same cinematic quality as a movie. So So ultimately, a movie can be a cheaper, more buzzier experience. Maybe it does. I don't know. I just know that it's good. Netflix has raised their prices repeatedly. The other thing Netflix might end up doing is taking this data and saying, you know what, we should offer an ad service. I mean, because now I actually read an article recently, YouTube made more money than Netflix this past quarter, and all based on ads. And they're not even the one, YouTube is now officially out of the content producing business. Why do they need to be in it? They don't need to. They're literally just using their title correctly. YouTube, you do it. You guys out there, produce the content so we can make money off it. And that's what they're doing. So I think I think what will happen is in a couple of years, Netflix will jump to some kind of hybrid of weekly, like they did with Arcane, where they release 3 at a time, and it'll start to go to mostly weekly, or at least like 3 or 4 episodes per week, something like that. I do think that the caveat to that, or the fallout of that, is that we're going to get this golden age of content is going to stop, because once everybody moves to weekly, I think one of the reasons why we were getting such a glut of shows is because of the model, because a show like The Witcher will drop all in December, and by January everyone's done with The Witcher.
That's
So
right.
it doesn't last a long time. So they need to have another show to take its place, and another show and another show. And then if they're going week to week, so like something like The Witcher will last 3 months as opposed to one, then that's 3 different other shows that they could have had that will not be there anymore. And that's bad. That's imperfect percentage. But that's basically what will happen. And I think we're going to miss all the content, So I think that's going to be the residual of that. I don't see another way out of it. I don't begrudge them the want to have whatever product that they're having out. I don't begrudge them wanting that to trend so that it attracts a lot of attention and thus attracts a lot of subscribers. I get it. I get the business is business. But on the other hand, I think it's going to be costly if they all have to switch, because that'll be an act of desperation. Because the whole reason they told us to cut the cable was so that we could have everything we wanted on demand. And if everything goes back to a weekly format, yet we are paying exorbitant amounts of money for each streaming service, it's actually becoming more expensive than cable with none of the benefits of getting rid of cable, Yeah. So, there is that.
That was our show for tonight. Let us know what you think. Put your comments and feedback in the comments feed. We got the live stream feedback, but we also got the comments. Please like and share, do all that fun stuff. That always helps us out. Next week, Book of Boba Fett comes to an end. We will give you our Rogue reaction and so much more. We will see you guys next week. Rogue Wave.